Hey guys, and welcome to the very first Let's Talk on on this channel. What is the Let's Talk? Well, Let's Talk is basically a end of the game review type of thing, where I talk about my experience with the game, what I liked and what I disliked about it, and that's why I thought that an appropriate name for it would be Let's Talk. I would also really love to see what you guys think about the game as well. So I'm hoping this is more than just me, you know, rambling for I don't even know, half an hour, whatever about the game, and that's the end of it. I'm actually curious to see what you guys think about each and every game we play. In this case is Biomutant, and maybe even particularly in the case of this game, I'm curious to see what you guys think, because I mentioned this throughout the series, but the um, the opinions about the game are really split between people who say they love it and people who say they hate it. And for example, when I started playing, I'm gonna talk about this later in the video, but when I started playing the game, I thought it was amazing, and then I would look at the reviews on Steam and I would watch reviews on YouTube, and people would say that it's not that great, and that always kind of, I don't know, confused me, I guess, because it's kind of weird. Like, I thought it was great, not decent, not okay. I thought it was great. Um, but yeah, let's not waste any time. And because of that, I'm actually going to start with the conclusion. And I know that's kind of weird, but I'm I'm really not here to waste anyone's time. And um, if you just want to know if the game is good or bad, in my opinion, of course, then I would rather just get that thing out of the way, and then if you'd like to keep listening and keep watching, um, as I go into a lot of details about the game, then that's perfectly fine. I really appreciate it. But if you don't, then at least you got the information that you were here for. So, without any further ado, let's actually begin, like I said, with the conclusion. And the conclusion sounds something like this. After I, well, actually, yeah, let's go with that. After spending, I think I have 182 hours in Biomutant at this point. And those hours are spent between personal characters, Biochu, the character that I played for you guys, and also the amount of times I played when I had to go back in and take the photos and so on and so forth for the adventure journal. So yeah, the total amount of hours spent is 182 hours, and I think that this game is beautiful. It's impressive in its scale if you think about the size of the team who made it, and I had a ton of fun with it. To be honest, I regret the fact that I finished the series because I wanted to explore more of it and go through New Game Plus, I don't know, at least twice, but I just don't have the time for it, unfortunately. Because I always have to, do new intros, new research, and new videos and all that, and it takes a huge amount of time. And with a day job and stuff like that, it's just way more than I expected. Now, is the game without his flaws? No. Hell no. Sometimes it's frustrating and underwhelming, but I think the good surpasses the bad by a lot. To give you, I don't know, let's call it a colorful image, it's like, let's just say you're hanging at a bar and you lock eyes with a beautiful woman. She smiles, you start talking, and she invites you to her place. You get there, she leads you to her bedroom and then starts reading you a bedtime story. It's not exactly what you thought will happen, but it's still an enjoyable experience. I hope that makes sense. Um, and that's pretty much the conclusion of this video. I think it's a really beautiful game, but it's definitely not a game without flaws. It's definitely not perfect. So that's something that you need to keep in mind as well. Would I play it again if I had a chance to start over? Absolutely, without a doubt. I would start playing the game again with no problem. I would just make some different choices just to make sure that I don't get frustrated, and I would tone down some of my expectations. I think that's the best way that I can put it. Now, for those of you who want to hear in more detail what I think about the game, let's talk. I try to split everything in categories, but they overlap more often than not, so take them more as general guidelines, I guess. First things first, I am not hating on this game. I'm not trying to be mean for no reason. I think this game is borderline fantastic at times, and if you hear me complain about it later down the line, is because I think it has so much potential, and with some tweaks, heck, I might even call it a contester for Game of the Year, but not without those changes. So, what I'm about to say, it's out of frustration, not evil intent or something like that. I just want you guys to know that. I'm gonna tell you a kind of stupid story. It's somewhat funny, but at its base, it's kind of stupid. I had just started playing Biomutant, and I was loving every freaking second of it. It was perfect. And then I would go on YouTube or on Steam and see people tearing this game down like it was the biggest pile of crap ever made. I think I even saw a guy who put it in a top 20 worst games of 2021 or something like that. And his comments actually exploded with people who jumped in to defend Biomutant. I thought that was great. I was happy to see other people share the same joy for this game as I did. But before that, now I'm not a conspiracy theory kind of guy, but I swear, I thought, what if like certain people are trying to drag it down because a team of 20 people did such an awesome game? I swear to God, I started thinking about this a lot. Why am I saying this? Because I want to give you some sort of proof, I guess, about how much I actually enjoyed my time in the game. And at that point, it reached such a level that I felt like someone might just be mean to this game just for the sake of pulling it down or something like that, right? So the problem is, the more I play the game, the more I start to get frustrated with it. So I kind of started understanding a little bit better why those people were saying the things that they were saying. Not, I don't completely agree with them, definitely not, but I started seeing some things. The more I played, the more funky it seemed. Let's talk about graphics, exploration, and something that I call visual storytelling. The reason why I split graphics and visual basically in two different things is because graphic to me just kind of refers to the prowess, right? Like, are the textures great? Are the models great? And stuff like that. Whereas visual storytelling simply kind of refers to what you see. You know, is it beautiful? Is it exciting? Does it feel good? That kind of thing. And that's why I split the two in two different categories. I personally love how this world looks. Period. That's it. I love the graphics, I love the visual storytelling, everything. No more, no less. I think it's great. And yeah, again, we're talking about a team of 20 people. I'm gonna try to not say this throughout the whole video like 50 times, because yes, of course it's impressive for a smaller team of developers, but I think that at the end of the day, when you deliver a product, that product needs to look good no matter how many people worked on it, right? Like the product standard needs to be at a certain level. And that's why I'm kind of trying to avoid a little bit the whole 20 people made this game. Not that it's not impressive, but the product needs to speak for itself. And I think it does. I think, like I said, it's beautiful, it's great. The game has a lot of biomes to explore: grass fields, forests, large bodies of water, small islands, rocky terrain, deserts, wastelands, and much more. I think they basically put everything they could think of in this game. On top of all this, you also have areas with really harsh environments like cold, hypoxia, toxic, and so on and so forth. In case you didn't watch the series, well, shame on you first of all. But if you have not watched the series or played the game yet, all of the harsh environments I spoke of require some type of resistance, or you will die. I will talk about resistances later in the video in more detail. There is one sort of bad thing that is kind of noticeable, and that is copy-paste assets. These are scattered all over the world, and sometimes, I know it sounds weird, but you will find yourself instinctively going through a house you've never been in, well, because you've already been in it, just somewhere else. I hope that makes sense. There are a lot of assets that get copy-pasted all over the place, unfortunately. It's not horrible, but it's not great either. I want to mention something here. In certain areas, it actually makes sense for houses to look the same. Why? Well, because it's not uncommon for a place to have similar architecture, right? It's the architecture of that village or that city or whatever. Or I don't know, there's a neighborhood created by a team of architects or a developer, or stuff like that. What I find problematic is that they're the exact same ones. Same cracks, same broken walls, and that's a bit unfortunate. Is it a deal breaker? No, of course not. I absolutely love the way the game looks, and in the big picture I don't really mind this that much. Just thought I would mention this. Now let's talk a little bit about exploration. In Biomutant there's always something to do. You know how in cartoons someone tries to trap a character and they kind of place some goodies on the floor, and the character picks one up, then moves 5 steps, then picks another one up, then moves 5 steps, and so on and so forth. That's kind of the principle here. Every time you complete an event, no matter how small it is, there is always something else well within your reach. More often than not, you complete something and you already see the next thing that you're going to go for. It can be a resource tower, it can be a fight happening, it can be a building, something. There's always something within your reach. And speaking of something to do, make sure you don't ignore the side quests. Trust me, there's a pretty big chance you'll enjoy some side quests just as much as the main quest, maybe even more. And now, since we're talking about main quest, let's talk about the Worldeaters. I have so many things that I like and so many things that I don't like here. I'm gonna try to focus on just the big things. I think the battles are pretty great visually. Each one of them is truly different in their own storytelling. If one pulls an electric cable and starts smacking you with it, another one will use a freaking water bending skill and hit you with, I don't even know, pressurized water, I suppose. You ride a mount and use a grapple to make one of them trip. You jump in the stomach of another one and KO him from the inside. There's a lot of variety, it truly is. Things are blowing up, you're dodging waves, tails, claws, fireballs, and so on and so forth. Really freaking enjoyable. Each and every one of them requires some sort of preparation, and in each battle you have some sort of, I don't know, let's call them allies. And I'm talking about Mechaton, Octopod, Majute, and the Googlite, which is both a really cool feature and a really stupid one as well, if you ask me. And this is kind of my fate starts, kind of starts to wobble a little bit. Let's talk about why this is stupid. You spend all of this time creating a freaking playstyle, a build, or whatever, and you end up, more often than not, unable to use your goddamn playstyle. Unless you're a gun user, in which case, congratulations, you can use them on, you can use it, the gun I mean, or the build, you can use it in 3 out of 4 battles. This is something that really pisses me off. In my videos, I played as a Psi freak, and what do you know? I was able to use my abilities in half, let me say that again, in half of 1 battle. So there's 4 battles of 4 Worldeaters, and I was able to use my powers, my abilities in half of 1 battle. And that was in it was in Porky Puff's second phase. And even then I had some issues because the freaking hitboxes are really small and spread on his body, like in the arms and chest and head and etc. He was standing up and I literally could not reach the body hitbox because the range of my skill was not big enough. Like I would have to jump into him to be able to use it. How messed up is that? It's really messed up. Just half of a fight from a total of 4 Worldeaters, and even then I had to use a different skill because of the fact that my main skill was not helping me at all. Being a melee character makes you live in the same world of frustration as I was living in as well. There is somewhat of a caveat here. In terms of damage, technically you're not going to have that much of an issue, because if you are using guns, if you are using guns, because as you know, guns are not stat dependent. They have their damage and that's it. The only thing that massively improves damage on a ranged weapon is obviously the crit chance, but you can argue that every character chooses to have crit or not. So I'm not upset about the fact that I don't deal enough damage. Like I said, technically the weapons are similar across the board, plus or minus the crit chance. What I'm upset about is the fact that you just don't use your character. You could take your character out and replace it with an alt, let's say, a secondary character that you created just for fun, and the battle would look exactly the same. One could be melee, one could be a Psi freak, one could be whatever. It would look exactly the same because you just don't use your build and your playstyle. You are forced into using either the mounts and you shoot with the mounts, like with the Octopod and the Mechaton, or you ride the freaking waves with the Googlite and ride the Majute in battle, and in which case you use the the pistol. Now there's a lot more to be said about this, but I don't want to take too much of your time, so I'm gonna just say one more thing. I freaking hate the pustules, or whatever the hell those things are on their legs. It's one of the most lazy and pointless thing I've ever seen in my life. Do you remember, like, in school when you are taking a test and you see the teacher coming towards you to take your paper because the time is up, and you just write the last 500 words in 5 seconds just to not have unanswered questions. Well, this is kind of what this crap feels like. Not only is it retarded, but it's also on 2 of the Worldeaters, not just one. So just a freaking copy paste. They try to make them different, unique, and then you slap some goddamn pustules on 2 of them. Oh, and welcome to another world of hurt. You sort of aim your weapons at it. The targeting system works on some kind of freaking proximity. If the target's hitbox is in an area around your aim, your gun will automatically aim to it. That is freaking horrible. Just let me aim my goddamn weapon so I can hit whatever the freaking hell I want to hit, instead of assisting me with this bullshit and actually making matters worse. And the systems becomes even more damaging, let's say, in the Worldeater battles, because they have more than one hitbox, unlike the small enemies. So you try to hit the pustules and the game says, you want to hit the head? No, I want to hit the freaking pustules. Okay then, body shot. Oh my god, that is really frustrating, and I really don't like it. But that's pretty much, I think that's pretty much it for the world bosses. I think I said more than enough to make you guys have a general idea. I don't think they're horrible or anything. I really do enjoy aspects of them, but there are also frustrating things about them, and I feel like they should not be ignored. Now let's talk about combat. I don't want to say it's the worst thing about Biomutant, but I for one have a lot of problems with it. Let's start with the melee. This one, I think it's the worst of the potential playstyles possible in the game by far. I feel like the combos are really slow, enemies have hyper armor and you don't. Let me sort of translate what that means. You do a wombo combo and you either get interrupted by any attack the enemy does, so bye bye goes the combo, you get staggered basically, or they throw you on your back. The more enemies you fight, the more you get swarmed, the worse it is. Even though I love swords and melee combat in general, I just could not get over the situation. To be perfectly honest with you, I almost quit the game because of this. And I mean, apart from YouTube, you know, I would still finish the game because, you know, it's kind of what I do. But in my personal playthrough, I was this close to being done with this game. I'm not even joking. Some of you might like it, but honestly I think it's a bad experience, and that's why I decided that if I'm gonna play the game, I'm just gonna stay as far away as I can from melee combat. A lot of people love it, don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't like it, I just don't think it works properly. That's kind of the point that I'm trying to make here. In my opinion, obviously. Again, these are all my thoughts and my opinions, and you might think differently. You might love the combat, the melee combat, but it's just not for me. Now, the biomutations and the Psi-powers. I'm going to talk about the system sort of as a whole, and also about the playstyle. Let's start with the latter. I'm not a big fan of this playstyle. It can be really strong, and you can become almost freaking immortal thanks to the brain drain perk. In case you don't know what it is, this perk allows you to regen as life 20% of the damage dealt with Psi-powers and Biomutations. Yes, they both work. I have a few problems with this playstyle. Nothing remotely close to the melee combat, but still. First of all, I think it becomes really boring. Most of the time you'll use like 2 abilities top. For example, on Biomutant, the character that I played for you guys, I played with Key Spark and sometimes Spark Ball. My combat looked something like this: activate Key Spark and then just walk around melting everything. Even though it looks cool as hell, it gets really boring after a while. You don't really get to combine that many abilities to create a playstyle, and most of the skills don't deal enough damage to be used as main skills in builds. So you're not left with that many viable options, in my opinion. Of course, if you like them, by all means use them. I just didn't find it that fun for me to use them. As a sort of, let's call it a comparison. Let's say the wizard or whatever the class was called in Black Desert Online. You can look it up on YouTube to have a better understanding if you're not familiar. If you're not familiar with the game, in BDO, the wizard obviously uses elemental spells to deal damage, but it's not a side system that is added to a freaking guy wielding a melee weapon. No sir, the spells and the melee combat go hand in hand, combo into each other, use each other, and so on and so forth. You don't stop something to use your freaking spells. I hope that makes sense. In Biomutant you do, and I think that's really unfortunate. The one Psi-power that I actually really liked is called the Sky Spark, and guess what, you cannot use it inside buildings. The biggest, baddest ability in the dark Psi-powers department can only be used as long as there is nothing above your head. Why? That makes no freaking sense. It's the hardest dark ability to get because you need 30 dark aura points, and once you get it, you realize that it can be used inside or under bridges or stuff like that. Yeah, you could say, oh my god, it's because it comes from the sky, so if there's no sky, then there's no Sky Spark. But do you really care about that? It's a cool ability that you can only use sometimes. And let's be honest here, you spend quite some time in houses, under bridges, in basements and caves and tunnels and other stuff like that that might have ceilings and whatnot. And yeah, I think that's pretty bad. If you ask me, at least, I think that's horrible. You find something that you really like and you can't even use it all the time. It's frustrating. Since I mentioned options earlier, I think the game should have had at least, I don't know, freaking twice as much Psi-powers than Biomutations. If you ask me, there's not much to choose from. There's very little diversity in terms of elements and stuff like that. Let's say you want fire, you want to do a fire only build. 2 skills, that's all that you get. A dash and a freaking fireball. Electric, no problem. 2 skills, a lightning ball and the chain key spark that I kept using throughout the series. I feel like that's not enough, man. I wanted so much more out of Psi-powers. I also wanted to use them in combos. I don't know, double jump key spark puts a circle of electricity and every enemy that passes through it gets electrified. I don't know, something like that. Fire your ranged weapon, hit with your melee weapon, and then use key spark to launch a wave of electricity from your sword, like you're freaking Ichigo in Bleach, if you're familiar with the anime. Or I don't know, hey, you have an electric skill, do this combo and the element transfers to your sword or your gun. Bam, Psi-powers enhanced combat. You don't have the strength to do a melee build because you're intelligence, so the melee weapon would not do that much damage, but thanks to the electric enhancement, the sword now takes the damage from your intelligence. I think these are enough examples, so I'm gonna stop. My point is that while ranged and melee combo together, with every combo you do, Psi-powers are completely left out of the equation. They are either standalone or, depending on your skill, they can be used as I don't know, let's call them combo starters, tossing the enemy in the air and stuff like that. With a few exceptions, I think they are also pretty plain and basic. I was hoping for something just a lot cooler than this. You scavenge everything you see and create new things all day long. I don't know, where are the freaking turrets? Where are the grenades? Where are the traps? Where's the engineer class? And yeah, let's say I would make them Psi-powers or biomutations just to put them in a category. I think I would just tie it to these systems. Maybe your electric powers allow you to combine different pieces of gear and create turrets and stuff like that. I don't know, I'm just throwing out some ideas out there. If it just feels like they used all of their imagination all over the place, and by the time they got to Psi-powers and biomutations, there was just nothing left. Speaking of bio freaking mutations, how about something that alters your body? How about, I don't know, 4 arms instead of 2, and you could use 4 pistols or 2 rifles or 4 swords or 2 great swords, or shoot double Psi-powers and so on and so forth, or I don't know, growing wings or a giant tail that you can use in combat. I think that would have been sick. But there's nothing like that, you know. You hear mutations and that's it. You know, it just doesn't, I feel like it just doesn't do enough. Yeah, you have some freaking toxic spewing stuff, and that's supposed to be a mutation somehow. Like, I don't know, I just don't think it's good enough for what it was supposed to be. Not to mention that in the trailers and footage that I saw before the game launched, it seems that you're supposed to find these things like out in the wild, but now you just open up a menu and you buy them. I'm not saying there's something wrong with buying them and stuff like that, but it feels like this is not the way it was meant to work. You know, the game starts with the biomutant whatever touching some type of liquid, and his hand just changes, morphs, whatever. But anyway, I'm letting a lot of frustration out. I'm gonna say something and it's gonna sound kind of weird, but on all of my characters, including my goddamn Psi Freak, the Psi points and the bio points just stay unused. Even on my Psi Freak. Thank God that at least the bio points can be of some use for me in terms of resistances. At least this way they can serve a purpose. If you like them, hey, congrats to you. You have more ways to play the game. They're just not for me. I'll say one more thing here. I don't understand why you have to freaking be good or bad to use certain abilities. It makes no sense whatsoever. I'm trying to be the best version possible, full light aura and all that, but hey, if I want certain abilities, then I'd better do some bad things or I won't be able to get it. Why? It just makes no sense if you ask me. You want to make them a bit more difficult to get maybe, so you split them into, you know, a system that you kind of have to do twice if you want all of the abilities. No problem, tie them to the level, the character level. That's not enough for you, then I don't know, tie them to a certain level of intelligence. You know, the more powerful you are as a Psi Freak, the more spells become available. Makes sense, right? Okay, then how about this? Let's say to unlock more spells, you don't have to have a certain number of light and dark aura. You just need to have a bigger or larger aura. The bigger the aura, the more powerful you are, the more Psi powers you can use. But no, instead I had to make good choices across the board and then kill 30 creatures just so that I can have access to Sky Spark. I don't like this. But I do want to offer praise where I need to. I don't know if this was intentional or not, but saving or killing creature is actually a pretty good system. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it works well, giving you the option to have the story you want to have, not being forced to do bad things in the story just so that you can get a skill. So big thumbs up for them. Now, if the light and dark aura points were not needed to get skills, then this whole situation could have been avoided. So yeah, it's a cool solution for a problem they created, basically. Last but definitely not least, we have guns. Yeah, we're still in the combat playstyle category, whatever. And thank God we have guns. For real, like I'm not even kidding. Thank God we have guns. They saved this game for me, I swear. I love them, most of them at least. I kinda hate shotguns, but I hate shotguns in every game, so they don't really matter. With guns, I only have two frustrations. Frustration number one, the combos. Most of them are so useless. To me, it feels like just firing your weapons normally does much more damage than a combo, by far. I think combos are very flashy, very good looking. You throw your weapons, you spin, wow, it's very nice. I fire like 20 bullets and only 5 hit the target. I think that's a problem. A combo for me should be something that once it's pulled off, it rewards you with something, be it higher damage or a knockback or whatever, something. But in this game, I think they don't really do that. The pinnacle of combat in Biomutant, in my opinion, is playing with a rifle. If you've never tried it, please do. It's perfect, and I mean it. You can be more tactical, not just button mash Rambo style. The damage is great, and the big surprise, the combos are perfect. Both of them help you reposition, disengage, and stagger all enemies. Not only the small ones, but the big ones as well. Let's say there's a big guy with a giant rock above his head and he tries to hit you with it. If he gets hit with one of your combos, he drops the freaking stone and the whole thing ends. And he gets pushed back like a step or two. It's freaking awesome. I don't really like rifles in games. I'm a pistol kind of guy, but in this game it's freaking amazing. The second problem I have with guns in general is that you cannot have a fire element on a gun. Now, there are a few things I need to say here. Maybe they thought that, a regular weapon fires, I guess, if that makes sense, and that's why there are no fire weapons. I don't know, I have no idea. Also, I'm not talking about consumables. I'm talking about elemental components that have fire element on them for guns. Okay, so not consumables and not melee weapons. I personally was not able to find a single freaking fire gun in 180 hours, so I'm just gonna assume that they don't exist. This doesn't really make sense to me. Fire has a build-up effect, has a build-up and an effect, just like all the other elements. I have no idea why it doesn't exist. I really don't. Not to mention, fire element would probably yield the best result on a gun, because if you have a melee weapon with fire and the effect procs, the target will start running. So technically bye melee damage, melee range actually. On a ranged weapon, on the other hand, you can still shoot it as it gets away. It might actually be great to, I don't know, simply keep enemies at bay. One gets too close, fire at him a few times and, just watch him run away while you actually continue to damage to him. I think that's pretty freaking cool. Now let's move from weapons, from combat, and switch to armor. Actually, let me mention one more thing here in the combat department. It's something that I really dislike about this game. It kind of forces you to play melee and ranged. That's something that I dislike with every piece of power, whatever in my body. I hate that. If I want to be a samurai, then I definitely then don't really want to shoot a shotgun or an automatic rifle or something like that. You could argue that yes, you do have shurikens and bows, and those two kind of work well, from a storytelling point with swords, and I agree with that. But let's just say I want to be a freaking samurai. The truth is, you can't. It's kind of as simple as that, because you can't if you want to do combos, because each and every combo in the game, it's based on the combination of those two types of weapons. Let's say you're doing the one of the combos, let's say the one that requires you to shoot your gun twice and then either throw your weapons or roll with the weapon and stuff like that. You still need to use your guns, and I think that's absolutely crazy. Why would you force your players to do something that maybe they just don't want? What if I want to be a cowboy? Do I really need a giant axe on my back just so that I can combo with my guns? That makes no sense. What I would think would have made a little bit more sense would have been if you could have two weapon slots and you put whatever you want in them. So instead of a ranged weapon and a melee weapon, you can have two sets of ranged weapons or two sets of melee weapons. I think that would have been so much better. Let's say you have pistols, and in the secondary weapon, let's call it, the one that replaces the sword, let's say you want to have only guns, instead of the sword you have a shotgun, and you shoot your pistols or your rifle. Let's say your rifle, you shoot your rifle, and in case the enemy comes too close, you do a combo with your secondary weapon, which is your shotgun, and you somehow manage to push it back or something like that. I think that would have been so much better and cleaner, and I think that's where a pretty good build diversity would have lived in, because based on the X amount of weapon types that there are in the games, you could multiply it and do a great number of builds and different combos and stuff like that. I think I would have enjoyed that a lot more than just to be forced to use either pistols or automatic rifles or shotguns or whatever combined with my swords, let's say. I really don't like that. But hey, that's how they decided to do it, so there's not much that can be said about it. I don't know if that's even something that they could change, even if they wanted to at this point. I have no idea. I was going to stop here. Actually, I was gonna stop talking about the combat here, but I'm not sure if I should mention one last thing or if I should mention that thing when we get to the crafting part. Yeah, you know what? Let's talk about that when we get to the crafting part. Like I said earlier, I think we should talk a little bit about armor. No surprise here. The big elephant in the room is the lack of a transmog system. I would say something, and some of you might not agree with me, but this is honestly my opinion. I sincerely believe that almost, and I mean almost, every game in 2021 should have a transmog system. If I play a game, I want to be basically in full control of my character. If I'm playing, let's say, a dual wield katana badass character, more likely than not, I'm not gonna want to wear a goddamn skirt or pajamas or freaking baseball attire or whatever. if I make a character in my head, I want to be able to bring that character to life in the game. Thank God they at least added the option to hide the helmet and the mouthpiece. Hope they will do more than that, but if they don't, then at least we have these two options. Now, speaking of hiding and options, Biomutant team, if you're watching this, please give people the option to hide their goddamn add-ons for each one of them, not a global add-on turn off and on type of thing. And for both weapons and armors, I think the armor ones don't bother me that much, but oh my god, on the weapons, I made this awesome two-handed sword one time, and on it I had glued a freaking electric saw and something that I cannot really remember, but still it looked retarded as hell. I don't like that one bit. Simple and beautiful weapons sometimes turn in the strangest things you've ever seen, and not in a very, cool, interesting way, just weird. That being said, in this game, I kinda understand the lack of transmogs. You're a rodent who goes dumpster diving every 5 minutes in a post-apocalyptic world. You wear what you can, what will help you survive one more day and all that. That doesn't mean I don't want a cool looking character, because I want it, but at least maybe I understand their logic a little bit better. Now for the Automaton. There's not much that I kind of want to say here, apart from one thing. I think you should have the ability to toggle on and off the abilities for the Automaton. I love the glider, I use the heal sometimes, but I dislike the gun and I never use the power up syringe, whatever that thing is called. As you maybe know, I'm kind of obsessed with colors and stuff, so when I shoot blue lightning and he shoots some sort of green bullet, I lose my mind. Just let me turn it off and move on with my life. Now let's talk about the Narrator and Conversations. This is probably one of the biggest topics that I could think of, in which people are sort of separated in two groups: those who love the narrator's voice and those who absolutely hate it. What side am I on? I'm kind of on the liking the narrator side. I really don't mind the fact that he represents everyone's voice. I think he has a nice voice. What I do believe is a problem is the fact that every line is basically doubled. First you hear the character speak in his own language, and after that the narrator comes in. So technically speaking, all conversations are double the length of what they were supposed to be. It's not a one-on-one ratio. Sometimes the character would just make one or two sounds and then the narrator will say whole freaking paragraphs. So they're not exactly the same length, but it's still pretty annoying in my opinion. It does add a lot to the length of each conversation. I think either let them speak their language and just have subtitles with no narrator, or have the characters' mouths move but with no sounds, and for the narrator to be their voice directly, I hope that makes sense. So they just move their mouth and the narrator will speak directly in English basically. But one of those two. I think the current version is just way too freaking long. To make matters worse, I think that sometimes the answer have very little connection to the questions. Like, I don't know, did you watch the game last night? And the answer is, I love pizza. Not always, for the most part, it's okay. But sometimes I found myself in that situation where it seemed like I either did not understand the question or it just didn't make any sense. I'm also not a very big fan of, I'm gonna call it a template that seems to exist. When you speak with some characters, they have this pattern of small talking. Forgive Lupa Lupin if it's one of the 4 Worldeater quest givers, and then and only then they start talking about your actual quest. Other than these things, I enjoyed speaking to different characters and listening to their stupid puns. I know they're stupid, but as you saw in my videos, I for one enjoy this type of thing when it's done on purpose. Like, you know, it's gonna be bad, and my amusement comes from how bad is it going to be, and I'm rarely disappointed. I also really like the fact that there is an option of reducing the narrator's comment. So good job on that. Thumbs up. Now, crafting. Probably one of my favorite systems in the game. You can mix and match so many components and come up with some really unique and funky looking results. I think they did a good job with this, so congrats to them. What I think it's even cooler is that if you have a grip or a muzzle or whatever that you really like, you can always dismantle the weapon and keep all of the pieces. I think it's awesome that the components are yours to use after as you see fit, no matter what. No penalty, no nothing. You do lose, of course, the crafting materials used to create the weapon, but apart from that, everything is yours. What I do believe is a problem is the cost of upgrading. Upgrading stuff is really expensive. Honestly, I've never upgraded something in this game. I just get better and better pieces, and that's it. They should lower the freaking cost of upgrades, if you ask me. Also, you can store more than 99 pieces of each material. It's just the number that doesn't go up. I just want to mention that. They should change that to go over 99 to show the real quantity that you have. Other than these things, just big thumbs up from me. Since we're on the topic of crafting, let's talk a little bit about elemental weapons and their levels. I mentioned this throughout the series, so you know that this is kind of a sensitive topic for me. One thing I really hate about the crafting is how the elemental damage is handled, or not handled I should say, when you craft. It goes like this. The core of either ranged or melee weapon is the thing that holds the elemental power. That power can range from level 1 to level 7 elemental. The difference between the level 6 and the level 7 is from 50 to 125, basically 2.5 times more. It's a huge spike. Obviously, you want the level 7, who wouldn't? But here comes the crappy part. Level 7 elemental parts are really rare. To be honest, I don't know if I've ever seen one in random chests. Most of them can be found in old world vaults and things like that. You could say, hey, but if you have a part that you really love, then just upgrade to level 7, right? Well, no. You can literally upgrade everything. The quality, the material, whatever, for both weapons and armor, except for the freaking elemental damage. You will literally see everything changing when you upgrade a weapon except for that. I think that is crazy. You give me almost total freedom to create whatever I want, but then you kind of take it away with one stupid thing. This made me feel so disappointed. I mentioned this in a video, but I would have liked to see a system, something similar to a lightsaber, let's say. As far as I know, the thing that gives the lightsaber its color is the crystal placed inside it. You can take it out, put another one in, and bam, new color. I would have loved to see something like this here. For the element to be a separate piece of gear, a component that you can attach and detach at any time from your weapon, just like every other component, and obviously one that can be freaking upgraded. They could have even built a cool system around it, you know. Let's say keep collecting elemental weapons, take the elemental component from all of the weapons you don't use and merge them together in a better, higher level component. I think that would have created a whole new layer of crafting, collecting and stuff like that. But unfortunately, something like that does not exist, and more often than not, you'll find probably level 6 elemental and you're kind of stuck with it. There's not much you can do about it. Again, apart from like some really cool weapons that, you know, you can dismantle and take that specific level 7 elemental piece and put it in the weapon that you like. But I think that it should there should be a way to upgrade elemental pieces as well, by combining them, or just a regular upgrade at, you know, an upgrade bench, anything, but give me control of that as well. Now, this is another thing that I sort of like in this, like I said, this game has both. For me at least, this game has both. One thumbs up that I would like to give, sort of, it's for the outfit system. I really like the fact that the game just has it. It's not a request or a second patch or whatever. The game just was built with something like this in mind. You have these slots, go ahead and use them. I really like that. I do have a problem with it though. You can't freaking copy paste an outfit in another slot. Let's say you have a main outfit for damage and stuff like that, and when you have to get some resistance for a nasty area, you copy paste the same outfit in the second slot, so you don't lose the first one when you start changing pieces of it, and you only change the pieces of gear you need to get to 100% resistance. That way your main outfit stays untouched, and the second one starts with your best one and goes down from there, depending on how many pieces of gear you have to change. I hope that makes sense. Now, about resistances. To be honest, I just poured all of my bio points in resistances, so just so that I can get rid of this whole system. I kind of dislike it. I can accept the idea of it, but I hate that I have to swap gear from my build just so I can have a resistance to something. I really don't like that. Again, I make a build just to sort of ruin it because my freaking character doesn't have enough fire resistance or whatever. The solution, if you ask me, is to use the bio points to get the resistances up and then never think about it again. Now I can wear whatever I like, wherever I go. I am not conditioned by, resistances. Now, there are these suits in the game that you can equip, and those offer you, if you equip all of the pieces, they give you 100% resistance to something. I don't like them one bit. First of all, you can find amazing pieces of gear with like 90% resistance to something. I'm serious, I'm not even kidding. Even in the videos that I have on YouTube, I think I find a few pieces of gear that have just one piece of gear has amazing stats, great armor, and 100% resistance to something. So not only are those sets like the anti-radiation set, anti-hypoxia set, and whatever, not only you have to change all of your pieces of gear to get to 100%, but here I am finding a random chest in the world that does by itself what that whole set does, and does it better with better stats and better armor in it. So I really don't like those. How would I have done it? Well, something like, let's say, Flash's suit, when he kind of opens the ring and that red costume pops out and covers his whole body. Maybe something like that would have been cool, right? It's a costume, you press a button, and on top of your armor and everything else will be covered by this equipment, right? So it's something that you put on top of what you have already. I think that could have been a system, for example. Maybe sounds retarded, maybe not, I don't know. Another option, since you're not really permanently in those areas, the ones with harsh conditions, maybe, and I can't believe that I'm saying this, maybe it would have been cool for those things to either be consumables or something that you need to activate before you get inside an area. For example, I don't know, before entering a cold area you have to drink a hot tea, whatever. It's a random idea, but I think the point is important here, right? You drink a hot tea and then you can go in the cold area. It's just for the next, I don't know, 10 minutes you can rush in and explore that area. And I think that could have added, another layer of storytelling and stuff like that, because you're kind of going through a race against time, and what you actually do to get that resistance makes sense, and I don't know, stuff like that. For, I don't know, like the tea for the hot area, maybe you drink a lot of water when you go in an area that has, that requires you to have large fire resistance, or you have to dip yourself in a lake before you go in that type of area. So that you're wet, and whatever, you can resist the heat a little bit better. Or I don't know, in hypoxia zones, maybe you have something that you attach to your mask and that allows you to breathe, but again only for a limited amount of time, and then you have to come out and maybe use another one of those, I don't know, oxygen, whatever. It could have been something, I think, separated from gear, and I for one would have appreciated more something like that, because I never liked changing gear for different type of event than the one that I'm doing right now. I just don't like it. But that's pretty much it about the resistances and outfits. Oh, I almost forgot about the I did say I was going to talk about the tribe weapons. Oh my god, how should I say this without it sounding kind of crazy? I just don't understand them. I'm just gonna say it the way it kind of came to me. I think the system, again, it could have been a really great system that ended up being something really shallow. And something being shallow, we're actually gonna talk about that next. But let's focus on the tribe weapons right now. So it goes like this. You either defeat an enemy tribe, like take over the whole fort and everything, and that gives you a tribe weapon, or your tribe Sifu will give you a their tribe weapon when you win a battle for an outpost. There's two ways of getting weapons, tribe weapons I mean. Now, why am I so disappointed by this system? Well, because I got a weapon. My first tribe weapon was the myriad boomerang, and from the beginning I just thought the system works differently, because what you get is a weapon that cannot be upgraded, cannot be modified, and that to me is crazy, absolutely crazy. Why not do it differently? The way that I think would have been better was, hey, by the way, each tribe has a secret type of weapon that only they know how to craft, and once you defeat them, you get access to either their weapon or their schematics, secret schematics or whatever, and you either disassemble the weapon or, you know, learn the schematics and whatnot, and from that moment on you are capable of creating that type of weapon. So the initial weapon is not an actual weapon. What it is a gate towards being able to create a new type of weapon. And I think people would have loved this type of system. I would have loved this type of system. Imagine I would rush through all of the tribes just like that, just so that I can have access to different weapon types to craft. I love crafting in games, and I love when you have variety in weapons and stuff like that. So being able to craft my own bow, my own shurikens, maybe some I don't know, fire elemental shurikens. Wow, that would have been amazing. But no, instead of having a cool system that allows you to freaking learn how to create a new type of weapon, instead you get 6 weapons that cannot be modified, cannot be changed, cannot be freaking improved, which I think is one of the worst things about it. And I don't know, man, I don't like it. I really didn't like it. And I think that what caused me to dislike it even more is that the idea seemed so crazy to me from the beginning. From the first time I've ever heard about tribe weapons, I thought that a new type of weapon will be open to me, you know, something that I can craft in the future. Let's talk about game depth. This game is extremely diverse. I think it has a lot of great stuff in it, but I think this game has too many layers for its own good. They are all truly great, and I will give you an example soon, but first let me explain. This game is of, I don't know, an avalanche of features, situations and quests and so much more, and they all blend together really well, except for one thing. They are one of the most shallow experiences I've ever gone through in my life in a game. Instead of focusing on 5 ideas, 7 ideas, 10 ideas and going really in depth with them, They focused, and I use that word sort of as a joke here, on about 300 ideas, great ideas, and all of them kind of race to see which one is more shallow than the other one. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but I kind of feel like, you know, I kind of feel like I need to say this. They created such amazing moments, or concepts of moments, I should rather say, but they just stopped there. The lack of depth in subsystems is kind of crazy, actually, or in some situations. Let me just give you an example. This is gonna sound stupid, but for this part I'm just going to put a black screen and nothing more. So you're either going to look at a black screen, or you are going to try to imagine what I'm about to say. The example that I'm going to give sounds like this. By the way, this is from the game. I'm not making stuff up when it comes to the idea. After the idea, everything is something that I made up, just so you know that. So, as part of the tribe wars, you first have to take over the enemy outposts, and only then you will be able to fight to take over the fort. So far, so good. This is something that exists in the game, right? This is a system, this is how the tribe wars work. There's nothing new here, it's all real. Now, let your imagination run wild for a minute or two. What do you see? What I see is 4 epic battles, especially the last one, obviously, each of them lasting, I don't know, at least 20 minutes, with waves upon waves upon waves of enemies surrounded by your tribe's army, busting doors open, using some catapults to launch stuff over the wall and weaken the enemy, cut their supply line and just wait them out. Some take a sneakier approach to unlock doors and sabotage the enemy's outpost. Some charge hard head in, a huge 50 versus 50 battle. Mayhem, things flying everywhere, and so much more. How does an outpost battle look in reality? Well, a giant guy breaks the door and then leaves apparently, or he transforms in the twin of the small guy that was with you. So no big guy, and there's only the 3 of you fighting against like 10 freaking enemies. I kid you not. No massive battle, no nothing. Fighting those 10 enemies and fighting random enemies in the open world, exact same freaking thing. I think it's disappointing. I don't remember exactly, but I think an outpost battle would take me between 2 and 3 minutes. And a fort battle, I think it was under 5 minutes or something like that. That's crazy. I'm not even gonna try to give you a second example. You might have seen it. I talked about it actually when we saved the burning village. I honestly would have traded 50% of the things you can do in the game right now for the 50% remaining, but with much more depth and quality to that percentage. I could keep going with this, but I think you get my point. There are so many great things you can do in this game, incredibly fun, but they end up being so short and so shallow, it kind of takes the fun out of those experiences. You know, I honestly, and I'm gonna say this one more time, I honestly thought that outpost battles are going to be amazing, you know, filled with enemies and stuff to do and things to destroy and whatever, and it really isn't. And to make matter worse, they're not even unique. The first 3 seem unique, maybe the first 6, but after that you kind of do the same thing over and over again, and that's really frustrating. I wish they would have tried to do less but better. I think I'm gonna stop here, guys. I think I gave you enough to make a choice if you are going to play the game or not. Oh man, I didn't even talk about mounts and traversing the world and a bunch of other stuff, but I think this was pretty in-depth and I think it's more than enough. I kind of started with the conclusion, so I'm gonna keep things short here at the end. The game has some underwhelming and borderline stupid things in it, but I do believe that the game is great. I loved playing it, and if they change some things about it, I think will become unstoppable. From the moment I set foot in Biomutant, I felt this, it's gonna sound weird, but I felt this weird joy that kind of reminded me of my childhood. I'm not really a touchy-feeling kind of guy, but I don't know why I felt like I was a kid while playing this game. It kind of reminded me of, I don't know, how fun games are, and I remember thinking, god damn it, this is how you make a freaking game. So congratulations to the Biomutant team. I really hope you guys see this video and maybe give the things that I said a chance. If you think that I'm right, if not, obviously that's cool as well. I'm just a random dude giving you my honest opinion, nothing more, nothing less. If any of you made it to the end of the video, although I'm not really sure, thank you so much for the support. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, there's so much more to talk about with this game, good and bad, but I think this is more than enough right now. Also, let me know what you think about what I said in the comments. I'd really like to hear what you guys have to say. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I'm curious how many people like it and how many people are against it. And that will be it. Thanks so much for joining me in this channel's first Let's Talk episode, and I will see you next time. Take care.